Hello, folks. TMBS 158, the first Joe Biden and Donald Trump debate. I'm Matt Leck. With me is Leisha Brooks.
Hello.
And David Grisco. David, you are still muted, my friend.
Oh, I'm back now. Sorry, I was just getting so excited.
Yeah, I mean, we are very excited.
I got excited. I hit the mic.
We're excited to witness true democracy tonight. As we all know, true democracy is facilitated by cable TV anchors and broadcast. I mean, hey, look, it's broadcast commercial free tonight. So we're going to go 90 straight minutes with these old guys. It's about as long as I think either of them can do, frankly. And we'll see what we have on the other side of it. I don't know. Do you guys have any opening thoughts about as we prepare for hopefully not a disaster?
I'm just excited to see the best aspects of this country. Two people who want to support us and they want to win our votes by battling in the realm of ideas. Serious debate about the issues. No politics, no nonsense, no partisanship. I'm really excited for that.
I think, yeah, two people here for the right reasons, I think.
No, what I'm really excited for is to dive into this big-ass bottle of bullet bourbon that I brought with me.
I don't know, Leisha, can you see that?
I can't.
I can't because, David, your video has...
Oh, I'm frozen. Y'all are
Frozen.
frozen on me, too.
Yeah.
Damn, let me see what that is. Okay.
I have a question for the crew. Do you think anyone is actually undecided?
I don't think... Well, there's a couple things. People who tune in for this, no.
No, not here. I just mean in general, watching the debate in this country. Do you truly think that, what is it, 6 weeks out, 5 weeks
What
out?
they're undecided about is not which candidate they prefer. What they're undecided about is, are they going to go through the effort of actually
voting? Yes.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I think that's basically
Yeah.
where we're at. Yeah, I think we may have lost David.
David has gotten already into the bottle and has lost the ability to operate his computer. So it's just gonna be us tonight, folks. Now he'll hop back on.
David was too excited for his giant bottle of bullet.
Too excited to make a gang analogy. I'm just at the point where it's like strategically, voting for Biden is a move. Voting for Trump is nothing.
Strategically, I would add, wasting too much time on that question only serves to discredit the left. Like, yes,
That's true.
And then,
that's true.
and I think I'm not saying you are. I think people that are actively, basically acting like it's a question.
Right.
That's not the question here. The question is, what do we do? I mean, how big of an uphill battle are we going to have? And I'm sorry, but if Stephen Miller and all these people are in office for another 4 years, it's going to be just a bigger uphill battle than it is against Biden.
Yes.
Basically, there he is.
I'm just closing out everything else.
All right. Yeah. Just focus on what's important. Learn the skill of debate.
Do you want to take another crack at showing us this? No, David keeps freezing.
No, did I freeze again?
I don't know.
It's the big media. They don't want your ideas out.
But I kind of have to step away and just get the debate ready just to make sure.
Right. Well, I'll just entertain the masses.
I mean, I'm still here. I can hear you all
okay.
perfectly. Maybe I'll try to get my video sorted in a minute. I think I might be breaking in a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably going to be a pretty disappointing debate. I think that Trump's going to come pretty hard. I think, honestly, all that Biden really needs to do is to not
take his Adderall.
Is to not stumble around too much, to not get flustered. His team said their big secret weapon is that they're not going to fact check Trump live, which is like, Jesus Christ, if you were thinking about doing that in the first place.
Plus, you don't want a fact checker anywhere near anyone on that shit. That's not going to help matters in either camp. I mean, I'm hoping that we're going to get a feisty Biden tonight, a salty Biden, and a lucid Biden. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I think you're going to be very disappointed. I think more likely than not, what we're going to be seeing is, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of return to civility crap. I think we're going to be seeing. I mean, like the thing that's so frustrating about this debate, and it's the thing that's frustrating about all debates, is one, when I got kicked off, I don't know what y'all were saying about this, but do you think anyone is undecided?
He donated to Biden, and he was really excited, and he didn't want you to know.
He's Team Joe. The thing is that I don't think that these are really going to switch anybody's mind into who they're voting for. But you have to remember how much of a pain in the ass voting is for most people. And, the kind of motivation that you have on election day to get up and drive to a polling place and to feel like this is something that's really going to matter and is really important.
Yep.
That's the kind of shift that, I think people are trying to capture.
Yeah. I mean, I think 2016 happened because basically it was, those times where it's like, I plan to go get groceries today, but ultimately I got a little bit behind in the morning and I just want to go home after work. So I didn't vote. Right. I think that happens.
Exactly.
So I ate a frozen burrito and I didn't vote.
Yeah. And in 2016, I think everyone assumed also that Clinton was going to win because there's no way Trump was going to win.
Right.
I think that was a case too. David's face is the one that's blocked by the.
Well, can you see me anymore?
We can see. Your shot is back in action. It's just the one that's in the lower quadrant.
How can we? I don't mind being in the lower quadrant. We can shift around.
We can actually shift it though. But I'm going to start the audio so we can hear what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So where is the debate? I've done a lot of research.
It's in Ohio, right?
Ohio. And there's no audience. Do we have masks? What's the setup here?
It's a blessing that I'm watching this. I couldn't deal with any of the Democratic debates. I really hate these for the most part, but I think it is worthwhile to cover because this is going to drive conversation for the next couple of weeks.
This is going to be the headlines and just all anyone's going to talk about for.
But you can't make me care about it. Is all that I'm going to say.
I'm really hoping that that it just doesn't become. I hope that it isn't something we needed to watch. Frankly, if we get to the end of the night and it's like, oh yeah, we didn't need to watch that, I will actually kind of be relieved. Because
is there anything we can make bets on or predictions or?
That's a good question. How do you guys think Biden will tee up the tax stuff? I mean, I guess I don't know. I haven't really prepared any kind of drinking game level.
I was more thinking how he likes to say that's my time or just the quirks or Trump kind of pieces behind. Yeah. The runners from previous debates.
I mean, the thing is, they've set expectations. I think David disappeared again.
It's the girl from The Ring.
Yeah. He might just need to do audio, in which case.
He can be the voice of God. It will sound like a debate between him, Trump, and Biden.
Yeah.
But Matt, do you know if people are wearing masks in the audience or if there's digital audience or what the regulations of the...
It looks like there's a small audience.
A small audience. I wonder how you...
Chris Wallace?
Do we have audio on
Good evening from the Health Education campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments, with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic,
There you go, Lisa.
which is serving as the
Please tell me about
health
the health and
security
safety
advisor to the commission to
protocols.
call for debate. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
All right, we're off to the races.
Hello.
Oh,
How you doing, man?
come on, man.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top.
MEK especially.
Good in every way, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, says she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up.
Actually, they would think about not doing it.
They kind of gave it up. Yeah, I mean, they didn't have the Senate, but whatever.
They were stopped. And
it's because they're cowards.
In reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Breaking out the booze.
First of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing is on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that
it seems like an accurate number from
you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you
50,
said
50 to 129.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now. I am,
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And
this.
if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't be
the deal.
200. It would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe,
which
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're
Mr.
not gonna be able to
President, as
shut
the
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish.
Spoilers.
The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it on the ballot?
it's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would
And
you
you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a
her view on Roe v. Wade.
I
You
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right, let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to
That's a
repeal
Trump
and
plan.
replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid
an
of the individual
when I finish,
mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse
opportunity.
me. I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
Obamacare. That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
I
worst
didn't
part of
ask you,
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like you
and we will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Right. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something. That there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care. All of the things that we've done, insulin, I give you an example, insulin, it was destroying families, destroying people. The cost, I'm getting it for
He's
so
listing
cheap.
deals because there's
It's
no
like
actual
water,
policy.
if you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
I say this is open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big. This
you'll
is
be happy.
big stuff.
You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
Well, if I can ask you the question.
It's not. They've given me too much money. They've given me too much money, Chris.
And create a government
certainly not
takeover of
gonna-
health.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that
Those
free
people.
in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders,
I-
who's
I
far
did-
left, on the manifesto,
Well,
we call it.
well,
And that gives you
manifesto-
socialized medicine.
Listen to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I'm here standing facing you, buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2 days
I tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do is
Super Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make
what?
sure because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agreed.
want to
Hey,
make
Joe,
sure.
you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want
Oh
to
my
make sure.
God,
President,
dude.
let him finish, sir.
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
1940s playground.
wrong guy, the wrong night at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
whole
manifesto.
idea-
Let him-
There is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
Just lost the left.
Number two.
There's no.
Just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
That's absolutely.
Now listen,
You
Joe.
have
an idea what this clown's
socialized. They
doing.
call it
Mr.
Medicare.
you have any
President.
do?
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well,
President.
I tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care
Bernie?
because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them
Number
better
three.
health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way, he
Obamacare.
doesn't know how. He doesn't know how to
I mean,
do
this
it.
is such a nightmare. Honestly, this
really
is
is.
depressing to watch.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize
is
if you're
no
both
good,
You
Joe.
have
speaking,
a one-hand.
It's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed that. They shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay? I said,
Psycho
you
to be-
run it so well.
That's
And I just had a meeting with them. They said the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what
doesn't
his
work.
people- that's
So
better
we
for the launch.
do want to get rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open-
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir,
something
but I have
that's
to. I
cheaper
have to
and
give
better.
you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president.
Chris is
talk.
going to have a heart attack.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
Sends,
Please.
he sends out wishful
that was
thinking.
you, Matt.
Has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because,
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You want
I'm not
question
going to
is
give people information, but I'm just going to tell them they have to vote for me.
Will you
Shut up, man.
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so-
list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
I'm not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment.
Didn't
We're going
have
to move on
to,
to the
didn't
second
have-
segment.
didn't
That was
have.
really a productive segment.
No.
Wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right.
It's like really strong
Second
talking
subject
point.
is
47 years.
COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject. So let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it.
With the counts here.
He's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It's 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them
all
said,
those people were your hostages. You
people that would
asshole.
not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already.
You were throwing them in the
What
sea.
kind of an assertion?
When they get sick,
You wouldn't have needed ventilators.
We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the
Seems
job
like
that
it's
we
still
did.
kind of
You don't have
bothersome.
it in your blood. You could have never
Brings
done
it up
that.
quite a lot.
Yeah.
I know how to do
I'm
the job.
obsessed.
I know how to get the job
Well, you
done.
didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief executive said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There was
no
lethal
recession.
disease.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And,
you would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
Okay.
I'm going to ask.
You don't trust Johnson and Johnson,
President Trump,
Pfizer,
you have repeatedly
DuPont.
predicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives.
God.
It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have
Johnson
to speak to.
Johnson.
We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others.
Sorry, Mr. Take on Pharma.
A lot.
Yeah.
I'm very political. But the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left. I don't
suggesting
know what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available. not when
Well,
it will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do
Sucks, man.
200,000 a
Sucks.
day.
Yeah.
They're going to be
This is
delivering
the
to
same
that.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically.
That was
you
him.
know that.
I
that was said sarcastically.
So here's the deal.
What?
This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show
I inject
that
bleach
people are
sarcastically.
concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out he puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust.
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him.
Bullshit
That's
question.
not. They're the people. And by the way,
to the
and
scientists that are in charge.
By the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
Do you
It's
believe
just so
for a
clear.
moment
All these scientists are very
he's
careful
telling
what they
you,
say
in
about
light of
Trump.
all the
Yeah.
lies
Right.
he told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be.
I mean, this is the biggest opening that Trump has,
Even
and
tell
you really need to hit strong
on
if you're
record
Biden.
saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died. And a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about
That's
you.
this
47
nasty
years
Trump.
you've done
man.
Let's say
Nasty
this-
Trump.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe. If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
Going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next
Michael and
president.
I've gotten
I want
over
to
the
quickly
smart
go
line.
through several of those. Reopenings.
You
Vice
love
President
that.
Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to
You
Nancy
know,
Pelosi.
And
Schumer.
by the way,
That was good.
Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopening and the fact
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we did a
he
great thing
just
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children
Oh, that's so
are.
It's unusual
disgusting,
for a
Trump.
disease.
I mean, like,
He
seriously.
knew.
But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November
I want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
I gotta
subject.
respond.
I want to
But
move,
those states,
gentlemen, I
those
want to move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants
President
to shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to
Disgusting.
recently question the effectiveness of
Psycho.
masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say,
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
I hate the fucking mask.
Way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress,
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said
Oh,
the opposite.
Lord Trump.
No
That's
serious.
All right, I want to ask
Dr.
you.
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did
I
not
want
say
to
the
ask you. We got
He
a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last.
It sounds
subject.
like you might have something against masks.
Your different approaches have even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with masks.
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his
Okay,
rallies.
all right. In any case, why you holding the
Chris
big
liked that
rallies?
one.
Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 25,
They give people what they
35,000
want.
people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
for
not
hangars,
worried
and
about
we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the.
Herman Cain.
We do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you
yeah,
see,
the guy Chris would never bring that out.
and literally on 24 hours
That'd be a great
notice.
question.
And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
That's
that one of the
I
last
have a few people who are doing news media right now, and Trump's people are really crazy about the angles that they can film his rallies because they want to make it seem like the crowds are way bigger than they are.
I'm way far away from
Lenny
those other people.
Riefenstahl.
That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing on one another.
We've had no negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35, 40,000
All right,
people.
you wanna-
at these
Herman
rallies.
Cain.
Honestly, finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been
Gang,
totally
gang.
irresponsible the way
Gang,
he
gang.
handled the social distancing and people wearing masks. Basically, encouraged them not to.
Herman Cain.
He's a
I
fool.
know.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody
killed him.
cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to
Nobody
the
cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit
Consumer spending is
growth
down.
is going to be there is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion
Bernard be crushing it.
because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. We are going to
That
get
was
to
a good ending. The problem is Joe's so
We both got 2 minutes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't
And that's a
really
huge
sharp-
opening.
People want their schools. No, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives.
People
They'll
want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their
Barely
schools
open.
open. I'm the one that
Yeah,
brought back
I feel like it's
football. By the way, I
alarmingly
brought
open.
back Big Ten football. It
And
was
it always,
me,
you've
and
always
I'm
been
very
able to
happy to do
go
it.
Yeah.
walk around.
All right.
People of Ohio are very proud of me, and you know
We're
how
going to
I
get
found
back.
out? When he took the
Gentlemen,
phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax.
Included in the
And
question.
Let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
returns.
$38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good. I built
Sir,
a
I'm
Yeah, I
asking
missed the
you
good
a specific
stuff.
question,
Yeah.
which
But
is,
let me tell you.
I his extremely good assets.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm
Trump
asking
is
you a question.
under leverage.
Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it.
Wow.
And you'll get to
When?
see it. But let me just
July.
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people.
Came here
Like
to the
every other
debate.
private person, unless they're stupid.
For the second, I didn't want to pay tax.
He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build the building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, that put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher make on the money a school teacher makes
See,
is
roundabout.
because of him he says he's smart because he can take
He like
advantage
needs to
of
rev
the
up
tax
a little.
code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts, and I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts.
That's your whole life
And make
creating
sure
this
that we
shit.
invest
Joe.
in the people who, in fact,
Yeah.
need the help. People out there need help.
But why did you
He
do
said
it
he
over?
was going to take away the tax cuts. So that
Because
seems
you
weird.
weren't
Why did
president.
you do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years?
screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe.
Yeah,
I've done more
Joe.
in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing,
Okay,
including
gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me,
Let's-
including taking care
we're
of your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward.
He's worried about
because,
vets.
Mr. Vice President, your economic plan,
What's that, Matt?
if you were to be
He keeps
elected
mentioning
president,
vets, Trump
focuses a
does.
lot
Yeah,
on
he's
big
worried
government,
about it because they
taxes,
were supporting
big
your
spending. I want
Bernie
to
boy.
focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American.
Foreign
We
policy,
have
part of American policy.
The federal government spends $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
This is the most normie part too. Like this is like Mitt Romney versus versus Obama kind of level of argument.
Shouldn't be 21%.
It's a weird. It's like going back in time.
91 companies, federal, and the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it
Billions
before
of
when
dollars.
you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
That's right.
your
I got
tax
it.
proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And
like it's never boomed.
The economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also,
Since
they took
capitalism's
everything that was down here. All you had to do was turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, you became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice
inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about.
One of the most uneven economic recoveries in American history, by the way. The amount of money that billionaires made in this system under Obama and Biden
He
is
blew it
unbelievable.
in fact, it was
I was
record, when there was record low unemployment before COVID.
That really breaks down
What
the
he
difference.
did,
This-
even before
Repeat that piece because you cut out.
I can't remember the title right now. It's but it's Robert Brenner, the New Left Review.
They said it would take. No, you're number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take
guy
a
is-
miracle to bring back manufacturing.
they're only
I brought back
15 minutes
700,000
in.
jobs. They brought back
I'm just
nothing. They
realizing
gave
that
up on
too.
manufacturing. I stand it fair.
I'm the guy that
He
brought
totally
back the
gave up on
automobile industry.
manufacturing.
I would have bailed long ago.
I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies
Not
came in
true.
from Germany, from
Not
Japan,
ever.
went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
And
that.
they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch.
All right,
gentlemen. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also,
it just sucks to hear anyone that's not a socialist talk about.
The mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None
You've
of
asked
that
a question,
is true.
let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
Totally
He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President.
Can we take 2 minutes
Yeah.
to just sort of like check in?
Yeah,
It's like, this
please.
is nonsense.
He didn't get $3.5 million?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I just think if we could take 2 minutes, because we have another 40 minutes of this nonsense ahead of us, and we're going to hear a bunch of Hunter Biden stuff. Which, by the way, what Trump is trying to do with it is absolutely nonsensical, given what his family is doing right now with the presidency. But it's no joke either. You know, the Bidens are just like any other significant political family. They profit immensely off of this system, and that's the problem. When we're talking about what's going on right here, now we just talked about the economy, and the closest that we got to an actual analysis of the fact that we have seen the personal wealth of people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos expand dramatically over the past few months, while the rest of the people are, you know, significantly suffering. The closest we got from that was Joe Biden's line about Scram, right? It wasn't even anything about the working class. It was a regional kind of argument, right? Which in this country can tell a story, but still, you know, there are rich people in Scranton, just like there are rich people in, you know, South Carolina or, you know, anywhere in this country.
Yeah. It's frustrating because there's also just, even if you don't want to get in, even if you're not attacking Joe Biden for really legitimate things, it's frustrating. He can't just say things really succinctly and clearly, and just like sometimes he does have a little bit of ammo and he just isn't able to deliver it. And it makes me feel like when you're like stuck in the back of a car in a dream and you like want to be driving or something. Just say it.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It is very depressing, I must say. This I mean, I think the defining thing, if I had to like put a top line in for, there's an impressive display of psychopathy from Donald Trump and how he addressed particularly the COVID section and deaths. Like, just, I mean, really, I don't know. It's I don't know what to say.
No, I mean, I hear you, but like, you know, the COVID thing is like, it's a difficult political issue. And I'm just like, I'm putting away like my morality or anything like that. Just like a pure like analyst on this question. 200,000 people is a despicable number. It is horrific what has happened in this country and the death that has happened in this country. But there are a lot of people who, if you don't have that directly around you, it still seems very ethereal. It still seems like a made-up issue. There's still a lot of people in this country who don't recognize why we're doing what we're doing when it comes to COVID. And that's the kind of disconnect. I think that like once you have people around you who are getting sick from coronavirus, let alone people passing away from it, it starts to become very real. And I think that space for Donald Trump is starting to evaporate as it starts to go through the rest of the country. But, you know, I think there are some people who that's just not hitting as hard, because there are a lot of people who really still think it's a hoax, who think it's an overreaction. And
people who aren't affected by broadly whatever is who Republicans always speak to anyway. Right. Yeah. Like, and so, yeah, it makes sense that that's what they would try with the COVID thing. I mean, we'll see. I mean, it is really hitting red states right now hard, despite Trump wanting to say it's all on the coast. And the other thing is Trump baiting Joe with go ask Pelosi and Schumer. Pelosi and Schumer are a huge liability here because they have not defined the stakes and they have not come clean. Nancy Pelosi's pissing around talking about the debt, right? Like, it's atrocious that she'd be talking about the national debt at the time like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Coronavirus, when it should be about how the Democrats want to give you money and the Republicans are stopping in the way of that.
Yes.
How did he not mention that? Like, that's something that's so amazing right now. When he was making that point, which if I were his strategist, God forbid what reality that would be. But like, if I were his strategist in that moment when he was attacking Trump and he was, saying like, how are you feeling in Scranton? How are you feeling in all these parts of the country? Why not mention at that moment a Democratic plan to provide direct, money payments to the average American? He can't do that because Joe Biden, one, doesn't want to do it, and he doesn't even think about politics in that way, right?
He doesn't.
He only can do what seems to be the Democratic Party's only strategy. And don't get me wrong, Trump makes it very easy, but this whole kind of thing of like, we're not Trump, so we're necessarily better. If you run at that moment and you say, that's why I advocate, to give people $1,200 every 2 weeks until this pandemic is over, you're going to win over a lot of people because people can understand, one, how that will be helpful to them, and two, how that will be helpful for their communities as people try to get back on their feet, right? Because most people understand that these lockdowns have been very painful for everybody. Yeah. And all Joe Biden is doing actually is, and that's why Trump actually was very smart in the way that they were able to paint him in the corner. All Joe Biden is doing right now is arguing for the worst aspects of the pandemic, which are the lockdowns, right? Instead of saying like, we're going to do the lockdowns and that's going to be painful, but we're also going to provide money to people to make it a little bit easier for you to be living at home. And the fact that they can't do that, the fact that that's not the messaging right now, that's a failure. That's a failure that should be an easy dunk for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think more needs to be interrogated as to why they're failing that way. And it's because of the donor class, obviously.
Yeah.
We ready to keep going?
Yeah, let's go back into it.
It's challenging.
I think the chat really appreciated that little break.
Yeah, I appreciate
No,
that.
I needed it too.
I was
like,
in a
I can't do 90
place.
minutes of this.
It's just so frustrating because I know
$1
It is not
no,
true.
we're back.
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
No,
it's a fact.
Well,
It
you
is
have
not.
raised an issue. Let the
Been
Vice
totally
President answer.
Discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report.
$183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
with no
my
job?
son did nothing wrong.
Oh,
Mr.
So
President,
nice.
let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And
The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact,
Mr.
even the
President,
people who
please
testified under oath.
So let me ask you,
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
People under
you got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his.
I don't know what he's on about, but it's funny.
Mr. President, please stop.
I'll give you the list of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job.
Ooh,
You
Go ahead,
say-
you
Mr. President, watch Tony's,
Well,
what's
it's
it called?
hard to get
Showtime.
Excuse me.
Hey, let me just say to you,
No. I'm Mr. President. I'm
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family,
No, let him go.
my
Let-
family
already
lost
wrote.
a fortune by
Go
coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's such
they're
a.
right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
Every
such a great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
collect
people.
$3.5 million
He doesn't.
from them.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
you
here.
should
All right,
Not
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He
I
stood
get that.
up.
No,
he stood up,
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened
no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion,
Sir,
if you don't
that
get rid of
is
the force.
You know what?
absolutely not
stop.
true.
Tape
You're
doing it.
You're gonna,
Not true.
gentlemen.
This is just.
I hate to raise my voice, but
He's
I see
on
it seems
tape.
to be. Why shouldn't I be different than the two of you?
I don't
So
know.
here's
Turn
the
off
deal.
his mic.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question
I
about
know how to
Rick.
solve this.
I'm going to answer about something else.
Written
Go ahead.
debates.
We
I can solve this by doing written debates.
if we allowed both people to speak with fewer
Blog wars.
interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Oh, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
there's
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on.
This is
The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you
junior
say
high
that
school.
President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago when he talked about very fine people on both sides was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go
We
first.
don't need to ask this, Chris.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But
Oh God, I'm getting like
never
jaw
accomplished
tension
Actually,
from this.
never walked away from
That's
it.
like
Like
most
he
of
has.
American history.
It is true. The reason I got in the races with those people, close your eyes. Remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is who's
Now,
who
second,
in it,
sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir. It's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You called them super predators.
I know that.
You called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just
law
came out
enforcement
today.
organizations in context
Yeah,
of
good job.
your relationship is with African Americans in this country.
That's we've got a bit off the.
You're going to lose all of your radical left
I think
supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their
Because of how he cares about African Americans.
You don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question
true, but...
of race. Vice
Don't
President
coach Joe Biden on reactionary politics. Does he work hard?
Decided not to charge any of the police with homicide. You said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women.
Oh, yeah, no, they're not.
But there are some bad apples, and when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out.
That's what David
The
was
most
having to
hackneyed
say.
metaphor.
They have to be held accountable.
You're
And
his
what I'm
campaign
gonna do is
manager.
That
No, they're
spoils a
not.
whole bunch, as everybody knows.
together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it, but we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right,
What is peaceful protest?
This is
When they
disgusting.
run through the
This is
middle of
disgusting
town,
what he's doing right
burn
now.
down your stores and kill people all
President
over
Trump,
the place.
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful.
protest?
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you say it is.
President
did not
Trump, I'd
say
like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race
Matt, do
theory.
you think we could do
Why
2
did you
minutes?
decide to do that,
Yeah.
to end racial sensitivity training?
That
And
was just so disgusting, and something that really infuriates me about this whole moment in history. Where like obviously like we all agree, I think to different degrees, but we all agree that Donald Trump is an absolute threat to the United States and to the country. What is so frightening about Joe Biden sometimes is that since he's running against Joe Biden, since Biden is running against Trump, he's oftentimes trying to outflank him on things. And what Biden just said there about peaceful protesters and how like any action, that's outside of what he considers to be a peaceful protest, needs to be charged and litigated to the full extent of the law is absolutely disgusting. And it's something that is very frightening to me going forward. Not to zoom out too much, but it's also the same kind of thing that we're seeing with him when it comes to talking about South America and Venezuela, especially. Like Joe Biden is trying to outflank Trump to the right, saying like, "Oh, look, I'm not a coward. I'm so strong. I'm so prepared to do law and order against."
I still see you, Guaido.
That I get very nervous, and I don't find it to be a compelling argument in those circumstances that the worst abuses of like the American system are going to go away. Because let's not forget that so much of this Black Lives Matter protest and many of these injustices, including like federal, state injustices, were happening under the Obama administration. And there is no kind of, we shouldn't get ourselves into some kind of like fantasy world where we think that Biden's going to make all these systems go away. I don't even think it's, I just want to say this real quick. I don't even think it's worthwhile. And I know y'all aren't saying this, but I know this is like the big like meme thing. I don't even think it's worthwhile to say things like vote for Biden to end kids in cages. Because I don't think that system is going to end either under Biden.
Yes. I mean,
No one's in. I don't think anyone's in that fantasy world though. Who's
no, a
watching
lot
the
of people
show.
are. A lot of people are.
I think it's just there's like a precipice we're at, and Trump is I mean, I won't use much because whatever, but it's a scarier version of the same thing. And voting for Biden maybe gives us leeway to pivot and win the vote. That's essentially what it is. It's not.
Yeah, I think it's
changing
strategic.
anything.
Like, I mean, I fully expect Biden and Harris to prosecute, and I expect protests to continue into that administration, particularly because I don't think that we've seen the worst effects of coronavirus, for instance, and we haven't seen the last of police violence. So they're going to be putting down stuff themselves if they get off the office. I think that's a much better position for the left, frankly. I think it's much better than when the Democrats can just wear a kente cloth when they don't actually have any kind of power. Like, I think people worried about Kamala getting momentum to be, the 2024. It's like, well, if this narrative about her being the cop is already out there, like either she's going to confirm that or she's going to surprise us somehow. And I don't think she's going to surprise us. I think she's going to confirm that. And then we can have the fight that we actually need to have with this party. So like, I agree with David. I think there's fully strategic reasons to still like prefer them in power. But I think to expect a fight and also like, I mean, look, the hysterectomy story, right? That doctor done this is 2014. And I mean, the difference being though, is one party's base is primed to reward that party for that stuff, or at least completely overlook it. And another party's base is primed to revolt at the sight of it. And that's really the only difference. The actual exercise is, like David said.
No, I think that you're right. I mean, a metaphor that I've heard recently that I thought was good was it was just like you're in a car with a crazy driver, and one person is going to put their foot at 60 miles an hour, and one of them is going to put their foot at 40. Right.
we're heading towards the iceberg at different speeds, and one of them we maybe can redirect the boat. Maybe that's the way I see it, and I think it is to just kind of become just cynical and shut down and just, I mean, I don't think that like Biden and Kamala are going to be like public. Like I think Trump might like start arresting journalists, and like I think things could like really turn really quickly in the next 4 years. I mean,
I do think there's definitely an argument to keeping the GOP out of 8 years straight in the executive branch.
Oh no, I mean, I think that's a completely reasonable argument, and and I'm not trying to push back against that.
Right.
What I'm trying to push back against is any kind of idea that things are going to like that one, just like getting Biden into power. Like, here's one thing: we're not going to turn Biden left.
No.
Biden is going to be somebody who's going to be antagonistic to the kind of politics that we want to develop, and is also going to actively continue participating in the war successes and destructive aspects of the American empire and the American like white supremacist system, right? And like people need to understand that and stop trying to play this fantasy, because you see it all the time with people saying like, oh well, you know, you have
we're junior partners
Biden because you're against like kids in cages, all these kind of things. It's like, you know, I don't even think you can make that argument like convincingly. Like what you need to say is that weakens that aspect of the system enough that like we can push back against it, because Trump will push with all of his force to continue those aspects of the American system. Well, Biden will push as well, but he's just not as strong at the end of the day.
And he has it's a grim situation. I think that there's not that much you can say positively about Biden. It's just the fact that Trump is like offers a much more terrifying future, even just in terms of like so Biden's not going to save the environment, but what Trump could do to the environment, pushing in the other direction, that alone is a really concerning thing to think about.
Yeah. No, I think we should get back to this for a little bit so we don't make we don't have to watch it till midnight.
Do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else.
Radical,
and he would know.
What is radical totally about racial sensitivity training? Sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this.
Let him
It's
finish.
the 1776 Unites Project. Look it
Racial
up.
insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at.
I was right there.
You go to very many places.
Yeah, where's the birth certificate?
Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
the reason
This
is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats
Police department stayed the same.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
Yes, I'm
ahead,
in
say
favor.
it.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
loses
Law and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right, we're down. Mr. President, you're going
States
to.
of America.
Mr. President,
every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And the
we're now going to
places
talk
we-
about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where
There's another example, though.
people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200% crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way
That's not really.
he would have.
I love thinking about
suburbs
that.
would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would
Honestly,
be
Trump
gone.
like
And
might
you
listen to
problem
Chapo.
if you've
He
never
would
seen
know
red
a suburb unless he took a wrong
It's
turn.
on the Reddit.
He would
So
not.
much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead.
I was,
Wait a minute.
I was
So much
raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated.
Yes, they
There's
do.
many people
Yes,
today
they
driving
do.
their kids to soccer practice and/or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote,
Manifesto.
reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean? And do you
All
support...
right, Joe.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean? And do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I
It
support
sounds
is
reasonable. Like,
the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having
9/11 call?
and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what
in
they're
prevent-
talking about,
That's-
I like how Biden can say cops need more money and people should be peaceful
That is not
protesters.
He doesn't have any
And
law.
what the radical left is waiting for him to say the words
no
law and
law.
order before
That's not
tapping
what
out.
Almost
That- Look,
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
we don't have time to do anything.
All right.
Listen,
All right,
Name
folks,
one law enforcement group that came
I
out
think,
and
I
supported
think, gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there
and
are any.
I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned
We're not
into
peaceful.
riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people, the leader, excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call and bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here,
Oh, really?
here's the
But
thing.
I sent in the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals
question.
to get the killer
No,
of the young man in the middle of the street, and they shot him. And for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't
Trump,
do anything.
please
I had to send in
interrupt
the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesman,
Took care of business.
you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne.
Say you, say me. I said it. I said it.
All right.
Well, here's the point.
Go
The
ahead,
point
sir.
is that that's what he keeps trying to rile.
Wallace's question is BS, by the way, but Biden is just fumbling it like crazy.
And talking to
I don't
people
even
and
remember what the
standing
question
right
was.
together, figure out how to
Should,
deal with
should
this.
the people,
What's
like
he
the
doing?
mayor of like Oregon,
Just
get
say
this
it's
tunnel basically
inappropriate.
for the failure, like to be prosecuted for like their failure to implement
Yeah.
water in their
How
city.
about Portland elected Wheeler, not
It's a
Joe
nasty
Biden?
question for sure.
Right, right.
No, you have
Your statement.
repeatedly.
Wait.
You
have
missed the
repeatedly-
lovely tax question.
You made a statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
You
we
know, if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no.
in
I'm,
the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they
Good.
don't want to accept the National
They do,
Guard.
Trump.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Texas and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that.
specifically? Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
You want to call them? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what.
Stand
Stand by?
Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing
own-
problem.
Dude, he
Oh
will
my
condemn
God.
white supremacists. That's Trump knowing his system and his base.
Stand back and stand by. Something has to be
Not an
done for
organization.
Oh,
Antifa.
you got it.
Not
Kidding.
malicious. That's what
Okay.
his
It's an idea.
FBI, his
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna,
you know what?
No,
He's
no, that we're
wrong.
done. We're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're
Everybody
moving.
put a bad hit to your
That's
ass.
amazing, though. That somebody in the national debate said, "I will not condemn white supremacists."
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas that are-
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical.
gentlemen,
Jesus
we're now moving
Christ.
on to
What
the
a pig.
truth
Careful
and records.
with them. They'll overthrow you.
When a
in 2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, "Don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative." And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. He was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word.
No,
okay, sir.
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes, you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home,
I love
you
how you
got
stumbled over
less.
that talking
You're
point.
in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Bo.
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
For
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None
became
of that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made
son,
a fortune.
my son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All right,
of
But he
dollars?
wasn't given
All right,
tens of
he was
millions of
given
dollars. That
tens
is
of
totally,
millions of
that's
dollars.
been totally
President Trump,
discredited.
We've already been
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
$3.5 million
Okay,
from the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about
Moscow.
That is not
it's
true.
a
Gentlemen,
That
terrible thing.
report is totally
Why did he get it?
discredited.
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change? And what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now.
Okay, Nixon.
Our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change?
just
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do
exciting.
you believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this
I think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls.
I think Trump supports returning the forests in California to indigenous people.
Yeah, exactly.
To help them manage it, absolutely.
I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, "Sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem." I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
Sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double
this
and
is over
triple
soon.
the number
This
of
has
cars
to end.
purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car
It's
would
like
be
that
safe.
feeling waiting for 3 o'clock at the end of the
In
day.
California, they simply
No, but you
ignore
would take a lot of
Yeah,
cars.
waiting for last call as a bartender.
Yeah,
afford a car.
yeah. Any
Now-
running out of the clock.
And by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me. Many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place.
What is he on
What are you
about?
even talking about?
Yes, and
That's not-
and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given
Cool.
big incentives for electric cars.
dude.
What they've done in
Neato.
California is just
All right.
crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd
I want
like
you
you
to be able to do all the shopping you want.
Buy an
climate
electric
change
car,
record. But I also
buy
want
an
to ask you
electric car.
about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the
David
use of
jumped off his
fossil fuels
balcony.
to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by
So the
2050.
first question is it
President
real?
says
And the
a
second
lot of
question
these
is
things
it
would
too
tank
expensive?
the economy and
Yeah.
cost millions
If
of
it's real, isn't it too expensive?
Two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability of us
Are you
to
talking
take
about Tesla chargers now?
and make sure that they, in
This
fact,
is why
are
Bolivia is so important.
in a
Right,
way
right,
that,
right,
in fact,
right.
they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We
Not
can
ban fracking, by the way. Not ban
No,
fracking.
no.
Energy
David, that's crazy.
by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage
But
by having a
16
new
bucks an hour.
infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being
This is a fair point. Trump doesn't actually draw that line.
This is the guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that. Well, the fact is, it's all true. And here's the deal.
Talking about the Green New
This is
Deal.
what's so scary is that Joe Biden's
I'm
position, which is essentially climate denial.
$100 trillion.
I'm talking about
Where they want to rip down buildings
and
rebuild the buildings.
Yeah, that's wild.
That is not
most ridiculous.
that is not
where airplanes are out of
That's
business,
it.
where two-car systems are out, where they
Not
want
true.
to take out the cows too.
Not-
That's
Yeah, we're
not
going
true.
Breitbart again.
This is a 100
Simply,
trillion.
look,
That's more money than
that
our
is-
country could make in
that is
100
simply
years if we're
not
going.
the case.
All right, let me
destroy our
because I
country.
actually wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building
Homes?
1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes: the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100
They-
billion.
The fact is, it's going to create
They're getting
millions
tired.
of good-paying
They're
jobs.
petering
And
out.
it's tax incentives to people
Oh,
for
of
people to
course.
weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal:
You make up a
we
lot.
are going to be in
Honestly,
a position
the
where
most insane thing.
good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in
Like
better
we're
shape.
overhearing
We
it.
spend billions of dollars now, billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
The Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is not
building.
my plan.
I want to
All
rebuild
right,
every
If he knew
building.
anything
wait a minute,
about,
wait.
if he
Gentlemen,
knew
he
anything
made
about,
Kind of
They-
just screaming the Green New Deal is not my point.
No,
He
of
and his
course.
friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said,
That
was
stupid
actually cool video.
bastards.
Nightmare, man.
I
Nightmare.
would never
I
say
would
that.
Play
to
it.
the
Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little
question
trouble-
much.
I'm having a little trouble myself. But and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what environmental change will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
Why are you talking about? Joe Biden has no idea where he is right now.
Elderly.
Not only like on the debate stage, but the moment that we're living in right now, where you're dealing with climate
different
crisis.
than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks? Because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted,
the lawyers,
that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? You're going to get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster to our country, and we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense, and President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd.
Scary stuff,
watching,
man. That's scary stuff.
I think we really need to,
because people are really happy
not
with
be thinking about voting suppression, but thinking about
we won't know. We might
what a
not
coup.
know for months,
That's
because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened
if
in New
it
Jersey.
happens, it's a legal coup. They'll stop
in other
the
places.
vote.
They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way,
Well,
is too
again,
much.
their nominee wasn't she Major
They're losing
Barrett
30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
all run
It's
by
not going to
Democrats.
be announced that soon.
All run by Democrats. It's
President
a
Trump,
It's a rigged
you're
election.
going to be able to continue. You have been arguing for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them. We don't like them. We don't like them.
But what are you going to do about it? If there are millions of ballots going out right now,
what you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people...
You go and vote. You go and vote.
But like they used to in the old... Millions of people...
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending... They have mailmen.
Do they have final statements after this nightmare?
West Virginia mailmen selling the ballots.
I just want to hear your final statements.
They're being dumped in rivers.
Done with these clowns.
I already have my final statement.
This is not going to end well.
Okay.
This is not going.
That's the famous line of the night. This is not going
to end well. Yeah.
The fact that we're debating the legitimacy of the election
and you don't have
in a presidential debate
it's sent to you.
Terrifying.
It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day.
Oh,
if it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because
you're wrong. You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically.
There's no final statements.
That sizable number, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court, with a Justice Barrett, will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, when you have 80 million ballots,
I have a final
sending
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't be done. Already.
All right.
Oh, my God.
Final question is, in 8 states, we can keep talking.
I use boy
in 8 states,
ironically
workers are prohibited currently by law. 8 states.
Yeah, oh, my boy, you're losing. My darling boy.
The envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means
they're talking about the flattening of the envelopes. I've lost.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, this has gone out of bounds for me. The whole thing's been out of bounds.
I don't. This is why I don't think they should have debates. I think these are bad.
As the new president is. So, first for you, sir. Finally, for the vice president, I hope neither of you will.
I think they should just have them in a room and go for 20 minutes.
To stay calm during this extended
20 minutes.
period.
That's it.
Not to engage in any civil unrest, and will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what, from a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it, number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago.
This is
military ballots. There were military.
Nixonian projection.
Vice President
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked you had an opportunity to respond.
Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy...
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates this week.
Dark.
President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating.
Let's kill it.
The first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case.
Well, that was really dark. That, especially the ending of that, was unbelievably frightening and damaging to the future of this country. I'm pouring myself this big ass whiskey as I say that. What are y'all thinking? I mean, I think we're probably all of the same minds. These debates are obviously nightmarish, but what that revealed about the situation right now is very frightening. I'm curious.
Yeah, I agree with Nathan Robinson's pivot that, I had been saying that, I think you can grant, obviously you should vote for Biden in a swing state. I think I don't think dwelling on that, there's any, need for it. But, and then I said, but as far as your voice and your labor, put it elsewhere. And I still don't think that I think you can, if you phone bank for down ballot candidates, but the urgency here is real. I think Trump is, I don't put anything past him. He's told the Proud Boys to stand down and stand by. I don't think that was an accident. Because I do think he's ideologically, look, his dad was arrested at a Klan rally in Queens in the 1920s. What do you think his dad, and that was when he was in his 20s, what do you think he thought about the 1930s? What do you think he then later told his son, who in divorce court was revealed to have owned a book of Hitler speeches, and he said he didn't read it. That was his defense about it. So I don't put anything past Donald Trump, and I don't think anything's hysterical with regards to what his intentions or where his mind might be with regards to this. And I do think it's, I don't know. I wish, frankly, seeing that we had Bernie Sanders on that debate stage. And I think it's horrifying that it is Biden, because I don't know if we're. I saw impeachment went down to the lawyers, and I don't trust the lawyers to deliver really a result that is going to make us happy. And I don't know. I'm worried about the election being stolen with them coming in and saying, hey, where are these extra ballots coming from? Paul Ryan was saying things like that in 2016, that late ballots are a bit suspicious. This isn't just a Donald Trump thing. This is a party that's synchronized to do this, and they did it in 2000. And
claims of buses showing up from Canada.
Right. This isn't just Donald Trump. This is the whole party. So I think if it's close enough, they'll go for it. And then, damn the consequences, send in the National Guard. I think that's what they think. So I think we are at an extremely, extremely dangerous time in our history. And I don't really know what more to say on it, I guess.
I guess all I want to say, I mean, you've both said everything. There's kind of no point in talking about how terrifying and disappointing and frustrating. I don't know. I think it's like really hard to be in this position on the left because you feel really fucking mad. Sorry, we're getting a strike. You feel really mad that we've been put in this position. I don't know. I want to just try and focus on organizing and hopefully in the future being able to change this reality. I mean, this is really hellish and not fun. And I really hope in our lifetimes there is a way out and a way forward. That's kind of where my head's at.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear both of y'all. Let me just start here. I think that it's very clear that the scope of the debate tonight was a moment where you realize that what the Democrats did to Bernie Sanders was beyond wrongheaded, actually threatens the safety of this country. Mm-hmm. When you see the weaknesses that Trump exposed about himself and the inability of Biden to be able to hit at him, you see the strengths of the Bernie Sanders movement and what our politics were about. Now, here's the reality, though. We're not in power, and our movement was defeated. Very much, large part of it was because of a corrupt Democratic Party primary system. But there were self-inflicted wounds, no doubt about it. The difficulty here is, and I agree with you, Matt, about like the danger of this election, but I will say that if, we're seriously talking about a fear of, a group of people basically trying to invalidate votes, then I don't know how much like leaning on the importance of votes is going to do for the system. I don't think that Trump and this movement has the ability to go through with what they want to do, but I think they are going to try to lay the groundwork for it. And there's no doubt that that's what Trump was doing tonight. Mm-hmm. I think that it's a very frightening situation to be in, that we're having to deal with that question right now. I don't think that they're powerful enough to do it right now. And I think it's really important that we're preparing ourselves for that reality. It's a horrifying moment to really be living through.
I mean, I think with regards to voting, I think the strongest argument I've heard is that there are certain places that report a lot faster and certain places that report a lot slower. And the places that report faster will give us some indication of what to expect from the places that are going to report slower. So actually, like, we can have some indication that if Biden is going to win it, I think the votes actually do matter because of that reason. Like, I think.
By the way, I wasn't saying that the vote doesn't matter, but I'm saying if the feeling is that like Trump is going to try to invalidate the vote, right? Then we actually are talking about a very different kind of strategy. And what I'm saying is that like I think that it's scary that we're in a conversation right now about whether or not there's going to be a serious consideration of what the voting tallies are, right? But what I'm also saying is if you are somebody who believes that they're going to try to manipulate the votes, right, then, talking about, then you're not going to beat that at the ballot box, basically.
Well, I think the thing is they can, like, I think it becomes easier to do if the margin is closer, right, especially in certain key areas. I think that's the point. I don't think, like, I think, for instance, if Biden had this wrapped up, like he was winning pretty much everywhere, then there would be no talk about this, and they definitely would not be powerful enough.
Yeah.
If this is as close as the last election was, Biden wins a few of those states by as razor thin margin as Trump won them, I think definitely, like, then you start to see, like, we're not going to let all those ballots come in. We're going to say everything needs to be reported by this date, and because the states can just name electors themselves, and like I think the Republicans have enough of these important states controlled where I think that's the worry. I mean, ultimately, I think regardless of who wins, and the fact that we're even in this situation at all is argument to the point that it's not sufficient to just once every 4 years or 2 years or whenever to go to a ballot box to punch a ballot. Definitely.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that's not like what I'm hitting at. I'm just saying, like, that's a scary conversation to have in a democracy.
Yeah.
It's about whether or not the presidential candidates think the votes are legitimate, right? That's a frightening conversation.
I think democracy's in trouble. I think it's a much bigger trouble than state intervention in the economy is.
But what do y'all think about that debate in the general sense? Let's take, because obviously like that throws such a wrench in any conversation, right? Mm-hmm. That last conversation is just like, honestly, I think it's irresponsible to even bring up.
There are several segments
as a moderator with Trump,
Yeah.
I didn't even really want us to cover the debate. It kind of just it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, which is just different levels of frustration and rage, and then just having to kind of like, I don't know. I guess I think, David, you have like less of like me. I think Matt and I just have more of this like fear around like, okay, just like democracy ending, and like if there isn't a wide enough voting margin, then like that's it. But yeah, we just basically heard Biden, our left candidate, say that he doesn't support the Green New Deal. He's, has no interest in changing, the situation of law enforcement in this country. And, it was really frustrating to just watch him have so many openings and have no ability to attack Trump. And like, I mean, the point you raised about just simply saying, oh, there's a pandemic and our economy is crashing, we want to give you money. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Or we want to give you medicine. He doesn't. We want to give you housing. He doesn't. Healthcare. Yeah. I mean, it was maddening.
Yeah. I mean, I think to me, it's less what he says and more his inability to say it quickly and get to the freaking point. Like, I don't expect him, frankly, to champion the Green New Deal in the debate. I think like he's shown this entire strategy is going to be, we're going to keep the suburbs happy. And with campaign rhetoric, like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want that to be a policy or a rhetoric. But I think we all know that if we're going to accomplish any of these things, it's not going to be because Biden changed his mind on it. Just, him coming around on it. Like, I'm fine with, I guess, him saying what he needs to say to get into office. The problem is, obviously, when it becomes such a problem that, like, I don't know what his COVID position is. Like, but
what his climate change position is.
Right.
I mean, that's what's scary about the moment right now is that I think all three of us agree that 4 more years of Donald Trump will be endlessly disastrous. But what's so frightening and frustrating about this situation is that compared to Trump, anything seems better. And what Biden is putting forward is really, it's shit. It's disastrous policies, from healthcare to the economy, to justice. I mean, Biden spent a good chunk of the debate tonight talking about how he wants to come after protesters in this country.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. Not to mention his inability to have a climate policy that is going to be able to deal with the very real challenge that we have ahead of us. This is one of those things where it's just like, I think it's important. Like, look, I don't have any like shiny lines here for anybody that's going to make you feel very hopeful. The only hope that you can have is being clear-eyed. The only hope that you can have is being clear-eyed about the moment that we are in and the historical pressure that the left is in to change the politics of this society dramatically, right? This is not a moment to think that we're going to have easy solutions. This is not a moment to think that your individual activities, by the way, what you're going to do on the ballot box day is going to be what makes the difference. This is a moment that we all need to be diving headfirst into serious political organizing to change the system from the bottom up. Yeah. Because what's very clear right now from watching this debate is that it's not going to come from up high. Mm-hmm. It's not going to come from up high, right? And what's going to come from both of them is going to be disastrous. I think it's very clear and an easy argument to make that what's going to come from Trump is going to be worse. Mm-hmm. But don't get any kind of, false solace in the fact that Biden makes, alleviates these problems. We've said this before, but it's like 60 miles an hour towards the edge of the cliff versus 40 miles an hour, right? Yeah. whatever numbers
But
you
that
want.
could
You know
give
what I
us
mean?
the 40 miles an hour time to maybe save the car from exploding.
Like maybe.
Maybe.
The language just definitely is not what I think I saw on Twitter, that we're junior partners in a coalition. We're not that.
We're not that. They are explicit about the fact
Yeah.
that we're not
Yeah.
junior partners in this coalition.
Yeah.
We're not going to turn Biden left. That's just something that people need to like accept and understand.
Yeah.
We are in an oppositional political moment right now.
Yeah.
The only way we can change the politics is if we build the political movements that are strong enough to demand and to have their demands met. You're not going to change his mind.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
folks,
I will say there are people who are starting to organize. I've been talking to Joshua Kahn Russell about people who are organizing, you know, in case there is a coup, or in case there, you know, like there is strategy in place. There are people who are starting to think about, you know, these more sinister realities of what we just saw displayed, which, you know, I think we should be having conversations around that kind of strategy in the upcoming weeks, because it's not fear mongering. We're seeing things that have not been said out loud or this explicitly in this country before, at least in my awareness.
I mean, it's also the thing, like, the Republicans steal elections. That's what they do. They
that's their
stole it in
thing.
2000. Like they still like. I agree with Michael Parenti when he says voter suppression is a type of stealing elections, right? Like, I mean,
sure.
which is not to say that Dems don't cultivate their voter rolls. Also, I've experienced some of that in New York State, I will say. But I mean, the Republicans are just, I mean, they're much worse in that regard.
Well, I'm excited to vote down the ballot about some things back in California, I will say, on a slightly happy note.
Yeah, that's what we just got to focus. I also saw, Dan Crenshaw. I don't know how close it is, but his insanely gerrymandered district is apparently getting close, partially because of COVID. Do you know about this, David?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's a huge opportunity. I mean, Texas is something that we should talk about more in depth in the future, because there are some, look, get the Republicans out. That's a great situation. There's a fear I have about Texas becoming like suburb blue, which I think would be a kind of sad development. Obviously, it's preferable to, you know, what it is today. But, you know, instead of being like the radical potential that it has, if we're wrapping things up, I highly suggest that people who are patrons check out my interview that just went up on Sunday with Seneca on how we can actually win these kind of policies. Because as we talk about in that conversation, you know, a radical group of people were able to get Austin City Council to commit to $150 million defunding of the police budget in Austin. That doesn't mean it's set. That doesn't mean that everything that was agreed upon is what we want to happen. But look, those are coalitions and movements that are building power and are able to articulate slogans and demands into actual concrete change.
Yes.
I think we're going to make that public on Thursday for everybody, because I think it's an important interview that everybody should be able to listen to. The fact is that, like, I'm not a doomer, actually, like compared to like what some people accuse me of. I actually like have incredible hope and belief in our ability to fight back against the system. The only thing that I really want to push back against is any kind of, you know, false mentality that we're going to get easy solutions to complex problems. The only way we're going to be able to deal with this is if we continue organizing and building social movements that are able to fight for power and to win. And that's what we learned from the Bernie Sanders movement. And that's what we're going to have to expand upon now in this moment where we're actually now having to step up and take control.
Yeah,
that's the lesson from tonight, you know?
What is the CRL James line? Power concedes nothing without force or demand or something?
Yeah, without a demand. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
So, I mean, that's exactly like the kind of political movements that we need to, you know, we just have to be real. Claim no easy victories.
Yep.
You have to continue fighting, and you have to understand that, look, we can make the argument that Biden is better than Trump. I think it'd be absurd, honestly, to say the opposite. But we need to avoid any kind of pitfall situation where we think that that's a solution in and of itself. In fact, Biden is a problem for what we want to do. And I think tonight expressed that. You know, it just means we have to be serious about what we're doing. And the only way that we can find hope is in community and in building people's movements. And that's the hope. I don't know. Like, I'm very upset tonight. It's sad. It sucks what we're seeing. But you got to have hope. You have to have that kind of, what is it? You know, the Gramsci line, like pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will, right? That's the situation that we're in right now.
Yeah. I wish
guys.
I could give you both a pat on the back.
I know.
Up morale.
We've been through a lot.
Honestly, I wish we could get a drink after this.
I know.
I need to decompress.
Virtual hug. I want to send my love to everyone who's watching too.
Yeah, thank
you.
you
We
all.
all just went through something together.
Yeah. All right, folks.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, patreon.com/TMBS. If you want to become we did have a pregame show also.
Yes.
We didn't mention this even, but we had a pregame show for folks.
We did some
before-
really good stuff in it too. Good
Yeah.
interview with Gene.
Yep. If you want to check that out, get some more content that wasn't just, whatever
Sighing
that was
and
that we
eye
saw,
rolling.
like grumpy old men in hell.
Yeah, it's
Like,
can you believe he said that?
Jesus. Okay. But anyways, folks, we'll release that Austin conversation Thursday, and we'll have something for you this weekend. Alicia and David, good to talk to you. Hang out with you again this evening.
Appreciate
Take
you
care.
guys. Good night.